In 1964, Ford built a station wagon with a polarizing glass roof, an onboard television, a double oven, and a soundproofed children's compartment equipped with an electronic tranquilizer for emergencies. Another one on this list came with a 421 cubic inch racing engine. Not in a muscle car, not in a coupe, but in a station wagon that Pontiac sent straight to the drag strip. And one had a boat on the roof that deployed at the push of a button, a full kitchen that slid out of the trunk, and a shower head mounted above the tailgate. These were not normal family haulers. These were the most extreme station wagons America ever created, and every single one of them was either killed, forgotten, or buried by the very companies that built them. Today, we are going through 8 of them. Number 1. Chevrolet Nomad. In 1953, General Motors unveiled a concept car at the Motorama show that made no sense on paper. It was a 2-door station wagon based on the Corvette, with a hardtop roofline, no center pillar, and the kind of chrome styling that belonged on a boulevard in Monte Carlo, not in a grocery store parking lot. 2 years later, Chevrolet put it into production. The 1955 Nomad was the most expensive Chevrolet you could buy, after the Corvette itself. The problem was simple. It was too beautiful and too expensive to be a wagon. Families who needed cargo space bought cheaper Chevrolets. People who wanted style bought a Bel Air. The Nomad sat in the middle, admired by everyone, purchased by almost no one. It lasted 3 model years. Sales never came close to justifying the cost. Today, a clean 1955 Nomad sells for 6 figures. The car nobody wanted became the car everybody wants. But the Nomad was only one bold experiment. The next ones on this list took the idea further and removed something no wagon should ever lose. Number 2. The Pillarless hardtop wagons. In 1955 and 56, Buick, Mercury, and Oldsmobile each released station wagons with no B-pillar, no center post between the front and rear windows. When you rolled them all down, the entire side of the car was open air, like a convertible with a roof. They looked absolutely stunning. They also leaked water in a light drizzle, whistled wind noise at highway speed, and flexed so badly on rough roads that doors stopped closing properly. Detroit had removed the structural backbone of a station wagon for pure vanity. Style over engineering. Beauty over function. They lasted 2, maybe 3 model years. Almost all of them were driven into the ground and scrapped because they simply did not work as daily vehicles. The survivors are among the rarest American cars in existence, and almost nobody knows they were ever built. Those wagons sacrificed structure for style. But the next one sacrificed nothing. It just added horsepower, a terrifying amount of it. Number 3. 1957 Dodge Custom Sierra Spectator. Dodge took a 9-passenger station wagon, gave it Virgil Exner's massive tail fins, a third-row seat facing backward, and then dropped a Hemi V8 under the hood. This was not a sedan. This was not a two-door coupe. This was a full-size family wagon with a racing engine, seating for 9, and rear passengers who watched the road disappear behind them through the back glass. It may have been the first true performance station wagon ever produced in the United States. Dodge put a motor built for the track inside a vehicle built for carpools, and nobody in the boardroom said no. A Hemi in a wagon. In 1957. That alone should have been the most unhinged thing Detroit ever did to a family car. But the next one makes it look restrained. Number 4. 1959 Ford Country Squire push-button camper. Ford built a concept that tried to kill the recreational vehicle before it even existed, using a station wagon. On the roof sat a fiberglass boat. One button deployed it. Underneath, a full tent unfolded with a double bed. A third button activated a complete kitchen that slid out of the trunk, a refrigerator, a 2-burner stove, hot and cold running water, and a shower head mounted on the roof. All of it operated by push-button. All of it packed into a standard Ford Country Squire. Ford looked at a family wagon and said, "What if it was also a boat, a camper, a kitchen, and a bathroom? What if a family never needed to stop at a motel again?" It never reached production. The idea was too ambitious, too complex, and probably too expensive to build at scale. But the concept proved that someone inside Ford, in 1959, genuinely believed a station wagon could replace an entire vacation industry. That was delusional ambition applied to a family car. But the next one on this list took ambition in the opposite direction, straight to the drag strip. Number 5. 1962 Pontiac Catalina Safari 421 Super Duty. Pontiac took a full-size Safari station wagon and installed the 421 cubic-inch Super Duty engine, the same motor Pontiac had built specifically for National Hot Rod Association sanctioned drag racing. This was not a dealer modification. This was not an aftermarket job. Pontiac did this at the factory. A station wagon. On a drag strip. Running a quarter mile with a motor designed to compete against dedicated race cars. The car your mother used to pick up groceries became a quarter-mile weapon with a factory warranty. Pontiac did not ask permission. They did not market it carefully. They just built it, shipped it, and let the time slips speak for themselves. But brute force was not the only way to make a wagon insane. The next one did it with glass. Number 6. 1964 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Oldsmobile looked at a Greyhound bus, looked at a station wagon, and decided to combine them. The Vista Cruiser had an elevated roof section with tinted glass panels running along both sides and across the top, a raised skylight that flooded the interior with natural light and gave rear passengers a panoramic view of the sky. It looked like nothing else on the road. Families could see clouds, stars, thunderstorms, everything from the back seat of a station wagon. And unlike most of the cars on this list, this one actually worked. The Vista Cruiser sold well for over a decade. It proved that an extreme idea, executed properly, could survive the market. But Oldsmobile used glass. The next car on this list used something far less subtle. Raw, unnecessary, overwhelming cubic inches. Number 7. 1966 Chrysler. Town and Country 440. Chrysler put a 440 cubic inch big block engine, 7.2 litres, inside a station wagon that stretched longer than a school bus and weighed over 5,000 pounds. 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds. In 1966, in a wagon. There was no logical reason to build this car. No customer demanded it. No market study justified it. Chrysler simply had the engine, had the wagon, and decided to see what would happen when you combined the two. What happened was absurd. 5,000 pounds of American steel launching off the line like it had somewhere important to be. A vehicle designed for families behaving like a vehicle designed for the track. Chrysler built it because they could. That is the only explanation that makes sense. But every car on this list, no matter how extreme, still belonged in this world. The last one did not. It belonged in a future that had not arrived yet, and 60 years later still has not. Number 8. 1964 Ford Aurora. This is the one. Ford built a station wagon with 12 headlights. A roof made of electrochromic polarizing glass that darkened or lightened at the touch of a dial. An interior lit entirely by electroluminescent panels. No conventional bulbs anywhere inside the car. It had an analog navigation system, a built-in television, a refrigerator, a double oven, a curved sofa in the rear cabin, a swivel armchair. And then it had the children's compartment. Ford designed a separate, soundproofed section for children, sealed off from the rest of the cabin by an insulated partition. Inside that compartment, Ford installed what they called an electronic tranquilizer, a device meant to calm restless children on long trips. 23 individual innovations. Not one of them existed in any production car on the planet. Stanley Kubrick saw the Aurora and wanted it for his film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Ford agreed to lend it. Kubrick examined it, considered it carefully, and rejected it. His reason? It was too earthly. The car was too real. It looked too much like something humans would actually build. For a film about the future of space travel, the Aurora felt too close to the present. Think about that. A filmmaker building a vision of the year 2001 looked at this car in 1964 and said it was not futuristic enough, because it already looked like it worked. Ford never produced it. The Aurora was displayed, studied, photographed, and then quietly retired. Today, it sits in the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Not on display, in storage. 60 years of innovations packed into a station wagon that predicted navigation systems, smart glass, ambient lighting, and onboard entertainment decades before any of them reached production, sitting in a warehouse, unseen. All 8 of these wagons share one thing. They were built by people who refused to accept that a station wagon had to be boring. Some were too beautiful. Some were too fast. One tried to replace an entire industry, and one predicted the future so accurately that a filmmaker rejected it for not being fictional enough. The cars that were produced barely sold. The concepts never reached a single customer. Detroit looked at every one of them and decided that America was not ready. And maybe they were right. But the ideas inside these machines, the glass roofs, the performance engines, the onboard kitchens, the smart lighting, all of it, eventually showed up, decades later, in vehicles that cost 3 times as much and pretended to be original. If you could bring one of these wagons back into production tomorrow, with modern technology and no compromises, which one would it be? The Ford Aurora that predicted the next 60 years, or the Pontiac Super Duty that turned a grocery getter into a drag car? Drop your answer in the comments and subscribe if you want to see more of the machines America tried to forget.